Number 10. Random rock collapse. Vacation fun ended abruptly for dozens of tourists in southeastern Brazil earlier this year when a canyon rock face broke, sending a tower of rocks tumbling onto their boats from overhead. At least 30 people were injured and 10 died in a freak accident, which happened while they were visiting a scenic waterfall on Lake Furnas in the state of Minas Gerais. Terrifying footage shows the dramatic collapse, followed by a massive wave. Passengers who noticed the crack tried to warn a boat that was perilously close to the cliff, but it was too late for them to avoid the rock's direct path. Moments later, a massive chunk slammed right into the boat. Divers spent several days searching the lake for missing victims, who were all Brazilian nationals between the ages of 14 and 68 years old. The 10 people who perished were part of a group of family and friends who were on the most heavily hit boat. 2 other boats were impacted, resulting in numerous injuries. Reports explained that the region had recently experienced several weeks of heavy rainfall, which may have been what caused the cliff to loosen and break. Number 9. Post-vacation amputation. Victoria Curthoy's bad luck with feet started at age 17 when she cut her big toe on a piece of glass, resulting in a partial amputation. Years later, in 2010, she visited a fish spa in Thailand where starving fish feed on dead foot skin. As strange as it may sound, these spas were really trendy at the time, and most customers never experience any major health issues after their visit. But Victoria unknowingly contracted a bacterial infection called Shigella and suffered from recurring sickness and fevers for the next 2 years. The waterborne bug permeated the scars from the woman's previous partial amputation and rotted away the rest of her big toe. Doctors removed the toe in 2012. The remaining toes on that foot developed ulcers and became infected from the unnatural weight distribution caused by Victoria's missing big toe. In the meantime, the infection once again spread to her bones. All 4 toes were amputated over the next 5 years. Victoria must continuously check for signs of an infection, or she could lose her entire leg next. She used her experience as an opportunity to warn people of the medical dangers associated with fish spas. Number 8. Protective primates. 25-year-old Maykul Corosio Acuna became the first person to disappear from Bolivia's Madidi National Park in 15 years when he wandered off from his group in 2017. The Chilean national was camping in a remote area near the Tuichi River with a local tour company. They were miles from the nearest town, in a spot that can only be accessed by boat. Several people noticed that Acuna was acting strangely one evening. They told reporters that the man's face didn't look normal. Acuna declined to participate in a traditional ceremony thanking Pachamama or Mother Earth for letting them enter the forest. When a concerned guide went to check on him 5 minutes later, he had vanished. The group believed that a mischievous spirit named Duende had sent the man to another dimension as a punishment for not participating in the ceremony. They called shamans to the site in hopes of appeasing the spirits and securing Acuna's return, but their ceremonies and a week-long search failed to turn up the missing camper. Finally, 9 days after he disappeared, rangers heard Acuna screaming for help from a riverbank less than a mile from the camp. He was badly bitten, weak, and dehydrated. Acuna explained that he had experienced a sudden urge to leave the rainforest and ran, ditching his cell phone, sandals, and flashlight along the way. He said that monkeys had dropped fruit to him from overhead and led him to shelter and water, but he ultimately credited God with saving his life. Number 7. Topless tragedy. After divorcing from her husband in 2017, 35-year-old Natalia Borodina took a spontaneous trip to the Dominican Republic with her 11-year-old son, Ermac, and her friend Ivana Boyachuk. The 2 women left Ermac at their hotel and visited a beach near Punta Cana. On their way back to the hotel, Natalia asked Ivana, who was driving, to film a cell phone video of her. Natalia removed her bikini top and hung partially out the window as she seduced the camera. But her playful performance was cut short when she hit a signpost. She was rushed to the hospital with serious injuries and died within hours. Natalia's body was sent back to Russia, where she was laid to rest in her hometown. Her ex-husband rescued Ermak from an orphanage after a complicated custody fight that only turned in his favor thanks to help from his father, a high-ranking admiral in Putin's navy. Many people judged Natalia for her reckless behavior, but her friends and family remembered her as a hard-working single mother who loved life and lived it to the fullest. Number 6. Betrayed backpacker. Danielle McLaughlin was a young Irish backpacker who often visited India. Shortly into a planned 6-month stay in the resort town of Goa in 2017, a farmer found her lifeless body in a field. Someone had smashed beer bottles against her face and strangled her to death. Police charged 23-year-old Vikat Bhagat with Danielle's rape and murder. The two knew each other from the young woman's previous visits to the country and were friends. Bhagat claimed that he was coerced into confessing to the crime, but that he was innocent. He insisted that he and Danielle were in a relationship and that 3 of his friends had raped and murdered her right before his eyes. The suspect argued that he tried to save Danielle as she fought for her life, but that he was weak from a recent shoulder surgery. Bhagat's sister, Geeta, initially framed her brother in a less than sympathetic light to the press. She told reporters that she struggled to comprehend the thought of Vikat committing such a horrifying act, but also mentioned that his family knew relatively little about his life because he was very private. Geeta also said that her brother never finished school, had never held a paid job, and that he wasn't outright rude, but tended not to listen to his family. As the case developed, Geeta became increasingly convinced that Vikat was the victim of a police setup, and she began treating media interviews as an opportunity to campaign for his innocence. It's been 4 years since the murder, and Bhagat has yet to face justice after numerous trial delays. The case is first in line to be heard at India's newly established fast-track special court, which is dedicated to speeding up rape and murder cases in the country's notoriously slow justice system. Officials predict that the court could begin operating within months, but the unpredictability does little to comfort Danielle's heartbroken and frustrated family. Number 5. A hellish holiday. During a romantic getaway to the Spanish island of Lanzarote in 2018, British couple Christina Barber and Tristan Dainty developed a severe itch. Bite marks appeared on their hands, arms, and faces. At first, they thought they had been bitten by mosquitoes and received treatment at a pharmacy, but the pair were horrified when they woke up in their hotel room covered in black bugs. They spent the rest of the trip in and out of the hospital and avoiding the sunshine that they had come to the island to enjoy. Christina and Tristan returned to the UK covered in bites that left them scarred. They had to throw away their suitcases and clothing and filed an official complaint against Thomas Cook, the travel agency that they had booked the trip through. The company promised to investigate the incident pending the results of medical tests proving that the couple suffered from bedbug bites. Number 4. An extended stay. A woman and her 3 children, aged 14, 12, and 10, were vacationing in Colombia 2 years ago when they got lost in the jungle on their way to meet the children's father. They unknowingly crossed over into Peru and spent an absolutely astounding next 34 days living in the wilderness, surviving mostly on berries, fruits, and seeds. The kids became so weak that they fainted if they went more than a half hour without drinking water, and they couldn't walk for very long before they had to stop and rest. Rescue came when members of the Secoya indigenous group spotted the missing family near the village of Yupito and alerted the authorities. They were taken to a hospital where they were treated for malnutrition, dehydration, and cuts, and tested for malaria, yellow fever, and other mosquito-borne diseases. They were also reunited with the children's father, bringing their harrowing 5-week ordeal to a much-welcomed end. Number 3. Mysterious manslaughter. David and Tina Watson got married in 2003 and took a romantic honeymoon to Queensland, Australia. Things took a tragic turn for the couple from Birmingham, Alabama, just 11 days after the wedding. Within minutes of beginning a scuba diving trip to the Yongala shipwreck, 26-year-old Tina lost consciousness and sank 98 feet, 30 meters to the ocean floor. Only David knows exactly what happened after that. He claimed that Tina signaled to him for help, knocking his face mask loose. By the time he readjusted it, she was sinking too quickly for him to save her on his own, despite being a trained rescue diver. An ear problem allegedly prevented David from diving any deeper, so he surfaced to get help. Efforts to resuscitate Tina failed. Nearby divers reported seeing the couple engaged in a bear hug underwater while Tina flailed around helplessly as if trying to escape her husband's grip. They said that once David let go of his wife, she sank while he surfaced. A few weeks after Tina's death, another tourist got their vacation photos developed and noticed a young woman in the background lying face up on the ocean floor. David seemed unusually preoccupied with pursuing financial compensation for the tragedy. When the travel insurance company refused to pay, he sued. He dropped the case to avoid risking self-incrimination. Australian authorities charged David with Tina's murder in 2008. After resisting extradition for 6 months, he decided to finally travel there and face the music. He was convicted of manslaughter and served just 1 year in an Australian prison. David's return to the US was met with murder charges from American authorities, who had promised not to pursue the death penalty in exchange for the man's extradition. The case was dismissed based on a lack of evidence, but many people remain convinced that David either murdered his wife or allowed her to die when he could have saved her. Number 2. Collision in Paradise. Earlier this year, Rebecca Van Utert and Jason Howell dropped their 4 children off at their grandparents' home in Utah and flew to Hawaii for a romantic getaway. The successful 44-year-olds' lives were tragically cut short during the trip when a vehicle traveling in the opposite direction crossed over into their lane and crashed into their car head-on. Everyone involved in the collision died. Police announced that they are investigating the accident as a possible negligent homicide. They believe that inattention and speed were responsible for the deadly crash. The couple's heartbroken friends, family, and colleagues described them as incredibly loving parents who were dedicated to their careers and determined to make the world a better place. Rebecca was a lawyer and Jason was a doctor. Despite their vastly different lines of work, they shared a sense of purpose and a commitment to fight evil in the world by doing good, and the community is reeling from the devastating loss of 2 of its most beloved pillars. Number 1. A coma and a cold brew. During a trip to Tenerife in the vacation destination of the Canary Islands with his friends in 2020, 43-year-old British grandfather Chris Watkins decided to take a dip in the hotel swimming pool and dove in. Moments later, he was on his side, screaming that he broke his neck and couldn't feel anything and pleading with his travel companions for help. At first, the man's buddies thought he was joking. One pal suggested that the injury wasn't as severe as it seemed, but Chris reassured him that it was. Speaking with reporters, lifelong best friend Christian Priest recalled feeling his heart sink when he realized that Chris was serious about the medical emergency. He likened the experience to a living nightmare. Chris was rushed to the hospital where he underwent emergency surgery. He was put into a medically induced coma and flown back to Wales in a donor-funded air ambulance. His sister, Nadia Hopkins, said that when Chris awoke from his coma, the first thing he did was ask for a pizza and a pint of Stella. Doctors were pretty sure that he would never walk again, but Chris defied the odds, taking his first steps just months after the accident. His road to recovery is ongoing, but his progress has been nothing short of miraculous. When he tested positive for COVID-19, his care team feared that his condition would deteriorate. They even moved him to another facility where he could be monitored more closely. Thankfully, Chris defeated coronavirus and continues to amaze everyone around him with his continuous improvement. Thanks for watching. Would you rather stay in a bed-bug-infested hotel or drink a heaping spoonful of ghost pepper sauce with every meal for a week? Let me know in the comments below.